Greetings, this is Kevin Jefferson with this week's trade theory on Friday, May 2nd, 2025. So obviously, I did not did not give any analysis this week because I said it was kind of moving day, which turned into moving week. So price has been moving higher on most of the assets that we track, obviously. And so I want to give you an insight into where things are now that we're at the end of the week. So we're starting with Bitcoin here, and this is the daily chart, and it has essentially looking like it wants to change directions, but it's kind of moving back up into consolidation as well. So you can see over here on the left, it's moving back up into where there was a lot of activity with price, where I call the flea market, where you got buyers and sellers. And so it's up here. And so my expectation is that price will pull back off of this high. It's at 97.42292, but I'm expecting price to pull back off of that high down to about the 95.41660 area, and then that may be a good entry to buy. So but we have to watch. We have to wait for price to come back, and then we'll observe how it behaves around that area of support and resistance, the 95.41660 area. And depending on what the lower time frame activity is sharing with us, we can then issue a hypothesis of a continuation long or a reversal short. So let's go out to the weekly and see what that looks like. On the weekly, it's it's technically a level one long, but this nice continuous move upwards for the last four. This week will be the fifth week of positive closes for Bitcoin. I'm expecting price to pull back significantly before doing anything else. So I would not be surprised if next week was potentially a down week in the Bitcoin universe, if you will. So like I said, 95.41660 is my first area of interest. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and put that there. 95.41660. All right, and this is how I do it. Normally I just put the coordinates in there. 95.416.6, 95.416.6. We've got that there. Boom. And so now we can lock that in as an area. All right, so that's where I'm looking at as an area of interest, and we'll kind of watch that and see what happens. It could pull back deeper, obviously, but that's the first area that I want to pay attention to. So that's that. Now let's go to WTI crude and the pullback point that I'm interested in. So price did pull back to this possible pullback area, continued lower, but it has not closed lower than it was a couple weeks ago at the 57 area, 57.5 area, whatever that is. So price closes right here. I'm expecting a pullback all the way up to about the 63.834 area, and then we'll watch what happens there. So let me mark that 63.834. Double click that. It's gonna have me. Okay, 63.834. And these are just areas of, you look for areas of interest so that you can have a reference point, because otherwise the market is just moving and you don't really have any way to set your intentions with the market. So I'll come back and clean that up later. But that's my next pullback point of interest based on where price is right now. Now it could continue lower starting next week, but we'll just kind of watch that and see how the price action behaves around this point where it is right now. But that's a pullback area that I'm looking for price to move to. And once it gets there, maybe looking for another pullback and then maybe continuation higher. So we'll watch that next week. Something very interesting. We'll go to gold. I've got a day one pullback point here, and I thought I had one written down, but I guess I didn't write it down. But it's actually at a good entry point right now. So what I would do is go down to the lower time frames and observe price. So you can see price is actually still trending down. So I would be a seller. I would have been a seller today, and looked for price to get down at least to the 3202 area, and then observe there. It might blow through there. Who knows? But it's at a pullback point in my mind. Let's go out to the weekly and see what it looks like. Yeah, so it's pulling back on the weekly, pulling back on the monthly for sure. And so on the daily, at this point, I look for a good stall out point where price starts to stall out, and then look for a buy entry on this in the next several days or so. But we'll come back to this next week. I just want to kind of let you know where the market is based on everything that's happened. So gold is pulled back this week, but it looks like it's giving us an opportunity to get in long on that. So we'll discuss that for next week. And then going to the indices, which is where everybody talks about on a weekly basis. The Dow Jones, the Dow is at a major point. I think the 40,86104 area is something that we should be looking at. 40,000 A6104. So let me put that in there, and seeing what that gives us. 40,000 A61.04. 40,000 A61.04. All right. So we've got that as an area of interest. We'll watch that area, and then what, because price is really actually in a pullback point, so it could be setting up to continue trending downward. So looking on the weekly chart, it's like you say, prices pull back. On the monthly chart, prices pull back off of this this downward movement here. So on the daily, this could be just a big pullback in expectation for a continuation lower in the market. So we'll have to watch price action here next week around this area. All right. Now going to the NASDAQ, what are we looking at? So 19,268.60 is a support and resistance area of interest for me based on what the market has done this last week. So we're going to put that in there. 19,268.60. 19,268.60. And now we've got that area there. So that's a point of interest as well. So I'm definitely looking for price to go lower next week. Well, we don't know yet because it hasn't stalled out for the day. So it could continue higher. So don't let me get you to believe that that's the case. But from where prices stopped, or it looks like it's going to stop this week, I'm definitely looking for bearish behavior on the NASDAQ over the coming days of next week, at least the first 2 or 3 days possibly, for price to be pulling back in that area of interest. That's when it comes into play to see how price behaves around that support and resistance level that I put on there. And then depending on what it does there, we can see if price is looking to continue lower or if it's turning around and going to go higher. So just setting this stuff up as areas of observation for the next week. Now going to the S&P, 5505.15 is an area that I saw that I thought was interesting. 5505.15, 5505.15, and boom. So that's an area of interest as well. So the same thing here. Gonna watch for that price to pull back and be probably bearish over the coming days to start next week, and then we'll look to see what happens here. It may not even pull back to there, but we've got that as areas of interest that we want to observe going into the start of the week. All right. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. I know it's great to see the markets going up at least for a little while, but let's look at the context and don't be surprised when price starts to fall next week. And we'll just have to see what that really means once it hits some of our areas of interest. All right. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day and happy trading.